Hi guys, today we're looking at anxiety, arousal and performance. Anxiety and arousal are really important to understand that yes, they're defined differently, but they both interrelate. So anxiety refers to negative emotions and that feeling of being apprehensive about something that is also coupled by a heightened state of arousal. So you might be feeling really, really anxious, really apprehensive about an upcoming performance or a speech in front of the class, and as a result that heightens your state of arousal. You might be over aroused and you might start jumbling your words up when you're standing in front of the class delivering a speech, or you might be that nervous that if you're on a beam in gymnastics you might have the wobbles and fall off continuously throughout your routine. There are two types of anxiety, somatic and psychological. Now the first one we all experience in not just sport but anything such as maybe delivering speeches in front of a class. So somatic anxiety is those feelings of butterflies in your tummy, sweaty palms, or an increase in heart rate. Now some people respond to somatic anxiety positively, so the feeling of butterflies in your stomach might make you perform better, or some people like feeling those nerves in your tummy. It heightens your arousal levels. But sometimes when people get that increase in heart rate, that sweaty palms, it might make you really, really anxious, and it might impact on your performance. Psychological is having those negative thoughts about an upcoming performance, so fear of being beaten, perceive your skills to be inferior to your opponent, and then this leads to an increase in arousal. And if it's over arousal, then it can impact significantly on your performance. So let's have a look at arousal. Here are some key terms. That one is very structured, a bit more complex. This one is very much simplistic. So arousal is the body state of preparedness for performance. So how prepared are you to perform to your best? Anxiety, like I said at the start, is interrelated with arousal. So anxiety is a subjective feeling of apprehension that is accompanied by a heightened state of arousal. So if you are anxious, it impacts on your arousal levels. So if you are over anxious, it can make you become over aroused. Hopefully that makes sense. There are three types of arousal: physical, so it's your muscle activation and your adrenaline in the body. People often talk about that word, adrenaline. Okay, they're pumped up to perform, and sometimes, as we know, some athletes get over pumped and it can impact on performance. So maybe you hit a ball too hard and it goes out. Okay. Mental arousal refers to the clarity in the mind, attention and focus level. I think I said this in the previous lecture. A lot of athletes and sporting associations really focus on this now. So getting athletes mentally aroused, and that's really important to clear your mind and center your mind on and focus on your performance at hand. And for some, that is really, really difficult, that mental arousal. Emotional arousal refers to the emotional state of readiness and can range from a calm sense of composure to competitive aggression. Again, really difficult. I know I use this example as a lot, but Roger Federer is probably that one athlete that always looks cool, calm and collective on a court. When he needs to be aggressive, he can be. And I'm sure you can think of athletics that probably have that competitive aggression, and sometimes they're over aroused emotionally and their emotions can get the better of them. They might get a technical foul. In basketball, they might be ejected. In tennis, they might get a code violation, etc. So you don't really need to write these down, but some indicators of arousal include your heart rate, muscle tension. Okay, when we're really tense, that can mean that perhaps we are over aroused. Really important, you take a screenshot of this theory. So the inverted U theory, you will need to apply this. This theory is used to explain the relationship between the level of arousal and performance. As arousal increases, performance improves until an optimal level is achieved, and that's that optimal level there. At this point, the best performance can be given. Between this point, the athlete is either over aroused or under aroused, and obviously that can impact on performance. So here's your optimal. This is over, this is under. And obviously achieving that spot on optimal arousal level is really, really difficult. And that's why you need to try and do things to control your physical, your emotional, and your mental arousal levels. And like I said, that's why elite sporting teams hire psychologists. So indicators of arousal for fine motor sports or skills such as archery, putting and golf, your arousal levels are quite low, and I will explain that. For those gross motor activities, rugby league, your team sports, your arousal levels are quite high. So really, really important to remember that different sports have different optimal levels of arousal. So an archer is a perfect example of why they cannot be over-aroused. You think about it. If you've got that bow and arrow in your hand and you are shaky, so you have somatic anxiety, you will have obviously a decrease in accuracy. And you'll be unstable, which will mean that that arrow could go anywhere. So an archer has to really, really focus on controlling their emotional and mental arousal, their somatic anxiety, and I'm sure, part of their training would be controlling that somatic anxiety, clearing their mind, etc., to stop the shakes from happening. And they, like I said, they would have professional psychologists that would work on that. But that's a really important part of their training for sure. So arousal and performance. An optimal arousal level varies according to the individual athlete and obviously your sport. So optimal arousal varies according to the sport or skill. The more complex a motor skill, the less aroused the performer needs to be. So that really hard stuff, getting that arrow in that middle of that target, you don't have to be that aroused to do so, and you can't be, because if you've got the shakes, if you're over aroused, like I said, that can go anywhere. Think of Happy Gilmore when he's putting. He's way over aroused in that movie and it doesn't go in. He's got over emotional and mental arousal levels. He gets cranky, he chucks a tantrum and it's not going in. The simpler the motor skill, the higher level of arousal for good performance, e.g. tackling. Okay, if you want to make that tackle, you've got to be pretty aroused. If you want to lift, 100 kilos bench press, you've got to be pretty damn aroused to lift it over your head. And really important to make note, optimal arousal for a beginner is obviously considerably less than that of a skilled performer carrying out the same task. Arousal is obviously infectious. Okay, so if one person in your team is over aroused, then it has a flow-on effect. So if your coach is over the top, it could have a flow-on effect. If your coach is getting cranky, it might result in your captain getting cranky, and that's a flow-on effect with your team. Arousal levels can be manipulated to achieve the optimal level, e.g. if arousal level is low, it can be increased by warming up. Okay, we don't just warm up to increase our heart rate, our blood flow, and to prevent injury. We warm up to increase our arousal levels to get us pumped for the game or the competition. Some sort of motivational video. I know I use inspiring speeches. I get elite athletes or coaches to talk to my girls when I'm coaching, especially on the big stage, a national grand final, state grand final, really, really popular. Pumping music, I'm sure you girls use that method. A lot of elite athletes, you see them with their earphones walking into a stadium. Now, what I'd like you to do for homework is I would like you to watch the Justin Hodges YouTube clip that I sent you in the email to this YouTube video. And I'd like you to, it goes for about 5 minutes. You don't have to watch it all because you'll kind of get the drift of it. But I want you to indicate, so take a screenshot of this, and I want you to indicate on this inverted U curve where Justin Hodges' arousal was. Was he under aroused? Was he over aroused in that game? Or do you think he had optimal arousal levels? So just draw a star or whatever, a dot, and I want you to bring your answer to class and be ready to justify it. Thank you, girls.